the Sesshin, we begin early in the morning, and we end, we sit zazen, which is just sitting, and it's actually realizing all the thinking or all our thoughts that we have. And this morning when I was walking down for zazen, this was like at 4:30 this morning. I could see the mountains illuminated by the sun, and then I can see also the moon over the mountain. Did you guys see the sun and the moon kind of at the same time? It was quite special. Yesterday, my son Eiheiji, he was talking about the protests and the demonstrations, and I really didn't. He said that there's so much going on, and even his music teacher said, "Is the Zen Center going to show up at the protests?" And I didn't respond to him, but I just listened. And I remember when I was at UC Santa Cruz, I think the Gulf War was going on during that time, and of course I protested with my friends, and it was against the war and then for the war. And of course against the war, it's about having some type of peace or resolve. And I remember marching, and then everybody started fighting each other, and then throwing rocks at each other, and so we had to run back, and I found myself quite disappointed on what real peace is, and so I decided not to partake in any of it, and my friends said, "You're not gonna come with us to the marches or to the protests," and they were kind of mad. They were mad at me. They got mad at me, and I didn't respond to them, but I knew that there was something wrong, or something that maybe I could do that's beyond taking sides and also then fighting with others. So I think if of course for the younger generation now, and actually all of us, humanity, if we look to the outside, and if we look at everything that's going on, it seems pretty bleak and hopeless. Basically, all the evil that is being vomited out of humanity. It's quite quite horrendous. But in Buddha's times, and a lot of the ancient ancestors and Buddha's many periods have gone through this, about actually seeing the suffering of actually humanity. So if we look at all of it, it looks like it can be crushed. Actually, everything, when we look at it now, it looks like it could be swallowed up by the evil, by all the evil, or the evil or the good. Good, it could be just swallowed up. If it is all swallowed up, and the remaining factor is actually refraining from, and that's the first line of the pure precepts. It's refraining from committing evil. So the sitting, we're actually cleaning up. We're cleaning up our own mess that we have actually the potential, or we are actually part of this evil that we see outside of ourselves. So just like in Zazen, we get when we're sitting meditation, we get pulled by all our thoughts. We get pulled by our delusions, or all our fabrications, or maybe hopes and wishes. And actually, we're just sitting on the cushion. But we're realizing, as we sit on the cushion, we're actually realizing the delusions or the fabrications that we are actually that are coming up. And to realize is actually an interesting one, because when you have a thought that comes up, and it has nothing to do with you sitting there. When a thought comes up, and it could be cooking a meal, and you start planning how to cook the meal. When you realize it's a thought that has nothing to do with your sitting, then it's the realization of the thought. It's quite interesting. So you realize the thought, like you reflect on the thought that you're fabricating reality. Once your awareness, at that moment, your awareness goes to the thought, and you realize that you're not cooking dinner, then it's the realization of the thought. And that's actually a freedom within this delusion, or within this fabrication that we make. So the zazen and the sitting is extremely important. So this peace that I'm talking about, for or against war, or for peace or against peace. It's not about discussion or debating or even thinking actually what peace is, but it's feeling peace. But of course, then we don't know what peace is, because then we fabricate we fabricate peace. So then we think we're doing good things, but that's maybe the wrong thing. So again, like when I was in Santa Cruz, then if you make the stance peace, then there's this other side that turns into war. Or if you say, I'm not gonna actually, I don't want peace, then that's still taking a side. So yeah, it's quite quite interesting what we think peace is, or how do we create peace. Or another way is to maybe if you have an idea, or if you have peace, maybe people don't want your peace. They don't want your peace. Yeah, they don't want it. So it does come down to actually what is peace? How do we create peace inside? I have an email that a while ago that Ite is from Israel, and he sent this a while ago, but he's from Israel, and he sits with us actually most every mornings from Israel, and he emailed this this email when the war began. Dear Nyoze, hope you are well. I live in Ramat Hasharon and work in Tel Aviv. We have a minute and a half to enter the shelters from the moment the alarm sounds following the Hamas rocket fire. We try not to go outside these days except for essential things, or if there's a shelter nearby. We're in great uncertainty since we do not know how long the war will last, and if other countries such as Lebanon or Iran will join Hamas. People here in Israel who live closer to the border with Gaza and whose homes the terrorists came to have gone through an unimaginable nightmare. Hamas murdered children in front of their parents. They kidnapped babies. They killed children, women, and elderly people and put them into captivity. It's so sad. We hope for good days. Thank you very much for your interest and for practicing with me. There's a story that comes to mind that I found. It's about two clans in India, and one is the Shakya clan, which comes from a very you would say a very good bloodline and lineage, and then there's the She clan that that is very humble, but they're more like a warrior class, And the story is that the king of She asked the king of Shakya if they could marry into actually the bloodline. So the king of Shakya, Suddhodana, he didn't think that this was a good idea because he didn't want to associate with the humble class, more of the humble class. But he knew that if he didn't listen to the king of She, that the king of She would destroy the Shakya clan because they were warriors. So he decided to send an offspring of the family and then a maid servant to the She clan. So years later, the king was married, and then they had a prince, Prince Rory. I think the Prince Rory is his name. And so one day the prince was playing and visiting the mother's house in the Shakya clan, and he climbed up on this altar, and all the people in the Shakya clan told the prince to get off the altar, and they actually threw him out. And so the little boy didn't know why he was thrown out, and there was a friend of the little boy, his assistant, actually then told him, he kind of said that you're nothing but the son of a maid servant of the Shakya clan. And the boy inside, of course, he got furious. And of course, the boy coming from high class, his ego was very damaged, and so he felt furious and then wanted actually revenge. He wanted revenge. So for many years growing up, the boy planned to actually destroy the Shakya clan. And he learned all fighting tactics, and he was furious. He was furious inside. And so his friend that told him he was the son of a maidservant, he became Prince Rory's actually general. So he fanned the fire and fueled the prince to now attack the Shakya clan. So the day came when they got all the military together, and they started to put the military together on this mountain, and the Buddha and the Shakya clan could see all the thousands of people that were gonna come to the Shakya clan. During those days that the She were setting up, all the Shakya asked the Buddha, please, we must do something. We must fight. But all of most of the people in the Shakya clan became the Buddha's disciples, and the Buddha was actually he knew how to fight. He was a warrior, and he knew all the how to use all the weapons and everything, but he didn't teach any of them to fight. And they pleaded with him and they said, please, we must learn because they're going to come. So the day came when the She clan started to march, and you could see him in a distance, and it was probably like a day like this, but it was very hot. It was very hot. And the Buddha found a tree that was dead on the side of the road, and the Buddha sat actually zazen under this tree. And usually we would think to sit somewhere cool, like a shaded tree, but he picked this dead tree and he sat zazen like in here, what we have been doing for Sesshin. And the Prince Rory and the general came by, and then they stopped, and then they saw the Buddha sitting zazen. And then the prince said, what are you doing? And the Buddha didn't say anything. And the prince said, we're going to attack and we're going to destroy your people. And he still didn't do anything. And there was a silence. So the prince was very moved about the Buddha's resolute sitting, that the prince said everyone should go back. So they retreated. The whole armies retreated back to the She. And then the general was furious. So he told the prince, we must attack, because now is the time to attack, and you must. And so, of course, again, then the prince became furious inside, and the heat of the prince just rose up to his chest and then up to his head, and he just got so furious that again then they started the whole march. So they marched the prince. They stopped at the Buddha. He was sitting zazen, and then they passed. This time they passed the Buddha, and then they actually killed all the people in the She, and they took all the women back. They killed all the people of Shakya, and they brought all the women back to the She. The Buddha was devastated, of course, inside, but the Buddha kept on sitting. And if the Buddha actually didn't keep on sitting and jumped into actually fighting back, then we wouldn't actually have this practice that we do now. And this is like more than thousands of years ago. Still the mind of humanity is still the same. Is we have this greed, anger, and ignorance that creates this evil that we create in this world as individuals. So, and the best thing that we can do is to clean up our own mess of this greed, anger, and ignorance, in which then we create. All we do is, we don't need another one of me out there fighting for something that comes from my greed, anger, and ignorance. So the whole the creating peace is actually digesting. It's digesting or eating. Actually, it's eating your own greed, anger, and ignorance on the cushion as you sit. And a lot of times it could be, it's very uncomfortable, it's painful. You actually sit with a lot of pain. You sit with a lot of the thinking. But we let go, and we witness actually this it's a direct experience. So we witness actually this greed, anger, and ignorance, and we process it in a way in which then something becomes you know what suffering is, and then there's a deep peace that starts to show in your life, just because you sit with actually all your deluded thinking and just sitting here, resolute sitting. And when you sit, it has to be very still, because then you're actually you're on the flame of your seat, and you cannot help but actually be there, and then be with this actually this suffering of humanity. And that's the suffering of humanity. Then we're letting it go, and we're finding actually this peace that's a lot deeper than fighting another. And this is then becoming connected with all things. And then there's a different type of peace that we feel, that's a direct experience, and it's not something that we think about or fabricate, but it's something that then we directly feel, and then we know. So in our everyday life, it might be helping somebody, or might not be helping somebody, but it's how you function in the world comes from that, actually this sitting practice of actually looking at your greed, anger, and ignorance, and then letting it go. Maybe I have this short reading from this book. Maybe what I was going to say, in like Zazen, we get caught, if you want to go back to maybe the metaphor of the tree, we get caught up in the moment that arises, in which the thinking mind, or it's that we get heated. So we actually act, and we act out from a place that's conditioned thinking, or it's karmic, that we act out. But when we don't act out, when we sit there in resolute sitting, we feel our pain, we let that go. We have a thought, we let it go. We have a good thought, we let it go. We have a bad thought, we let it go. We're impartial with anything that comes up. We're becoming impartial to it, and we then are we're returning to the coolness, coolness or the cool breeze of zazen. And this is through the zazen and then returning to actually the ground in which we sit on. When you sit in the upright posture and are aware of reality, all evil is like frost or a dewdrop. If you settle in the samadhi, all evil will disappear as promptly as frost or a drop of dew disappears under the sun. Being aware of reality, there is neither subject nor object, and we are immediately released from the karma of the hell of incessant suffering. When you sit in the samadhi, you will enter directly into the realm of the Tathagata. Therefore, this samadhi is endowed with a limitless virtue of the roots of goodness, and the limitless obstructions of one's evil deeds caused by evil karma will disappear without a trace. As this samadhi is truly the incomparable great Dharma wheel and the practice of ever going beyond Buddhahood, it is beyond words and discriminating thoughts. This samadhi is done simply by not clouding the light of yourself. When the light of the self is clear, you follow neither kanchan, dullness, nor sanran, distraction. The third ancestor said, when the cloudless light illuminates itself, there is no need to make mental struggle. There is no waste of energy. This is the vital point of the practice and enlightenment of this samadhi. The cloudless light illuminates itself means the light of the self shines brightly. Not to make mental struggle means not to add the illusory mind's discrimination to the reality. When you make mental struggle, the light becomes illusory mind and brightness becomes dim and dark. If you do not make mental struggle, the darkness itself becomes the self-illumination of the light. This is similar to the light of a jewel illuminating the jewel itself. It is like the light of the sun or the moon illuminating everything, mountains and rivers, human beings and dogs, etc., equally, without differentiation or evaluation. Like a mirror reflecting everything without bothering to discriminate. In this Jiju Zanmai, just keep the light of the self unclouded without being concerned with discrimination of objects. When you practice and learn the reality of Zazen thoroughly, the frozen blockage of illusory mind will naturally melt away. If you think that you have cut off illusory mind, instead of simply clarifying how illusory mind melts, illusory mind will come up again, as though you had cut the stem of a blade of grass or the trunk of a tree and left the root alive. This is very natural.
one take the position that both the rock throwing or the not going to protest were different versions of delusion, and that by showing up and just sitting, Buddha was doing a peaceful sit-in protest.
Oh yeah, you could. Yeah, yeah, you could say that. But yeah, it's protest, but it's actually beyond. It's actually beyond being against. It's not being a part of it, of the delusion. So it's not even protest, but it's actually being responsible for our own being and what we create. So they have a term. I think it's the term is like a chicken when the chicken picks up a grain of rice. It's a very straightforward action. But most of our actions in everyday life has to do with greed, anger, and ignorance. You give somebody that, you want something back. It's very subtle. But when we sit with this, then we are navigating our life in a different way that also includes the realization of this greed, anger, and ignorance. So it's not like it goes away, but then we work with it, in which then we turn it, and then it becomes a wisdom that is different. It becomes the greed, anger, and ignorance becomes then the fuel or the ground in which then the peace arises. But if it's only greed, anger, and ignorance, as in the conditioned realm, then we start throwing rocks. Yeah.